Hello, Internet. This is Harman Smith coming at DSP because it's long overdue. I haven't called out Phil on his nonsense because this is a nobody, okay? This is some like 40-year-old man-child in Seattle just whining about Nintendo near constantly. And I've addressed some of his hot takes before. I talked about how ridiculous his takes on Splatoon 3 were. I've talked about his takes on Mario Kart World and the Switch 2, but it really does need to be emphasized at this point that the people complaining about Nintendo Switch 2 are DarkSydePhil. Like that's the reality. Like if you're arguing the same points that DarkSydePhil is, it means you have the same mindset as him, right? You're not interested in new, unique experiences. You're not interested in video games. You don't want to experience what Nintendo has to offer. All you want is for your enablers to send you super chats, to give you money so you don't have to get a real job, like Phil. And that's the real problem with Donkey Kong Bonanza, I think. Like, Phil doesn't feel as if he's pulling in enough support by playing this game. That's the real issue here. Let's not mince words. It's not like downplay the situation. Like, Phil complaining about Mario Kart World and Bonanza has nothing to do with Nintendo or the games at all. It's entirely based on his own precarious situation and how he is slowly becoming an irrelevant YouTuber. Let's take a look at what he has to say.
Want to kind of summarize quickly some of the points I made. And now that I've slept on it, I think that maybe my opinions have changed a little bit. And to give you a little preview here, I just want to know what happened to Nintendo. Really? Like, I can think back to a time when, at any given moment, Nintendo would come out with one of their first-party titles, and it would be jaw-dropping. Oh my goodness. The graphics, the gameplay, riveting stuff, original concepts, things that would be like first-time experiences that would knock your socks right off, and you'd be like, wow, this is a memorable moment. Now, not every game on a Nintendo console was like that. A lot of times, it's a lot of third-party shovelware that really is what's shoved out. But whenever it was a first-party game, you kind of knew that's the studio that I could rely on I'm going to go spend my hard-earned money, and I'm going to get a very unique experience. Now, it wouldn't always be the most lengthy experience, okay, to be honest. A lot of these first-party Nintendo games end up being around 10 to 20 hours long, and then
10 to 20 hours is actually perfectly reasonable for a video game because it has no padding at that length. They're well paced. They're well put together. They have unique content throughout. Usually when you get to the 30 and 40 hour mark, that's when you start seeing like a lot of filler content and stuff that doesn't need to be there. Like 10 to 20 hours is a sweet spot when it comes to lower budget single player games. Now there are exceptions to that. Zelda is way longer than that. But for most series, like 10 to 20 is perfectly reasonable. But Phil is sitting here complaining about games only being 10 to 20 hours. Keep in mind, this is the same guy who like tries to tell people that he can't play long RPGs or visual novels on stream because they're too long. So, like, what are you talking about, Phil? So you're saying that like a 40-hour RPG is too long, but 10 to 20-hour Nintendo single-player games are too short. Like, which is it, Phil?
and you're done. But at least you would feel like you're getting bang for your buck. the time you're spending in the game is worthwhile and meaningful. But now we got 2 games for the Switch 2 so far, and I hate to say it, we have 2 completely different experiences that, for me, at this point, are pretty disappointing. I don't want to say that, it was a hard time getting my Switch 2. It really was. Like, it was a pain in the ass to get it. But when I look at the 2 games available for it,
He's talking as if like these are the only 2 games available on the console, right? Forget the games that are on the eShop, forget the third-party stuff, forget like the numerous other Nintendo games that have been put out on Switch 1. Yeah, forget like, ports like Hitman World of Assassination, forget like Rune Factory Guardians of Asuma, which was a day 1 release, forget Fantasy Life 2, forget like, all of that stuff. Like, there's only 2 games on Nintendo Switch 2, and they're both bad. This gives me flashbacks to like how people would damage control like Nintendo 64 back in the day, because it launched with like Super Mario 64 and Pilot Wings. Like, oh man, Super Mario 64 is not that great, and there's nothing else to play on the console. And then meanwhile, Wave Race came out, and then like you had like a really 1997, the following year, which is like one of the best years in gaming ever because of the N64, right? Like, again, this kind of like rhetoric is just laughably off base. Like, it doesn't make any sense. So first of all, you have to downplay 2 radically different first-party Nintendo games. Like, they're both completely worthless. They're both disappointed. I don't like either of them. And then you have to completely ignore everything else on the console. Like, you have to ignore, Welcome Tour. You have to ignore, like, the NSO stuff. You have to ignore, like, the ports, and, like, especially ignore the upcoming titles, because there's quite a lot coming out in the next couple of weeks that are going to be fairly big. Mario Party is getting an update, Kirby's getting an update, Dragon Drive's coming out, and we're getting a Pokemon presentations on the 22nd. So when you take all that into consideration, yeah, Nintendo can drop a Nintendo Direct at any time and just destroy this entire narrative that there are no games on Switch 2. But does DarkSydePhil think about that? Does he care? No. Like, because at the end of the day, no matter what Nintendo did, no matter how good the games are, like, he's going to sit there and complain no matter what. Ah, yes, Mario Kart, the series that's known to have a long single-player lifespan. It's almost like it's a racing game, and you're intended to play the tracks over and over again with your friends. Getting better at the game and like constantly improving, and learning the layout by heart and getting better at the like. I can tell you that I know people who have put 100 hours into Mario Kart World already. So for DarkSydePhil to sit there and try to say that like Mario Kart World has 3 hours of content is completely and utterly wrong. Like, what's he talking about? Because he's barely engaged with Grand Prix. He hasn't done the time trials. He hasn't done like, anything on the open world. Like, there's so much single player content that he hasn't even tried to engage with. Like, all he does whenever he plays the game, he's still playing the game, by the way. All he does when he plays the game is just play Knockout Tour online. And that's fine. I love Knockout Tour, but it does need to be emphasized that games like Mario Kart are endlessly replayable. Like that's the core issue with this take, is this idea. 3 hours of content. Like, what is he talking about? Well, I saw the credits. Like, yeah, that's what happens in racing games when you beat every track once. It's not some unusual occurrence. Mario Kart 64 did it, F-Zero X did it. Like, it's not some like novel thing. And that's kind of my mindset, like, looking at this, is like, what exactly is his point here? 3 hours of content for a racing game, that has a fully functional online mode that's, highly popular. Like, it just blows your mind that this is seriously the take he's chosen to go with when it comes to downplaying Mario Kart World.
We got one game that literally was done in 3 hours. Okay? Or we got a game that seems like it has an insane amount of content, but it's so samey and repetitive, you get bored.
Yeah, he's talking about a game he's barely played, by the way. He's like 3 hours into Donkey Kong Bonanza or something like that, and he's trailing well behind most people, right? All he's doing is like running around areas. Like watch his gameplay when he gets into the first room of the game. Like he spends like legit 5 to 10 minutes like just punching everything in sight instead of like progressing with the plot and the story like you're supposed to. Like he's really going to sit here and say, oh, it's the same thing over and over again. No. No, Phil. Like, as you get through the layers, you see more and more stuff. You're asked to do more and more things. You unlock more and more abilities. Like, you get into more and more boss fights, all of which are radically different, by the way. Like, you get bored because it's samey. Like, no, Phil, I've seen you play the game. Every time you come across something new, like say Turf Surf, you struggle with it, complain about the game, start blaming like the lack of tutorials, and just refusing to like accept the fact you're just not very good at the game. And yeah, anybody who like watches your gameplay footage can see that. Like, it's shocking compared to like what I do, what my playthrough of Bonanza look like versus his. Like you can compare the footage. It's like it's night and day. Like the tech in this game is amazing. It's smooth, exciting. Lots of variety when it comes to the boss fights and the characters and the environments and the puzzles. And Phil is just gonna sit there and say that like, oh, it's just the same thing over and over again. That is very clearly not true. I don't even think like the big Nintendo hate channels are trying to say this. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so angry with him and why I'm like making this commentary, because everything he says in this video is completely and totally wrong.
In 3 hours. So what's worse? The game that has no content or the game that's boring? Wait a minute. What are we talking about? We're supposed to talk about Nintendo. First-party consoles, first-party games for an exclusive console. That's literally, we never would be having this conversation. And even as much as last console gen, when you look at Super Mario Odyssey or Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, I can't even say that the statements I'm making right now wouldn't even apply to that. But they certainly...
Nope, not true. DarkSydePhil is very notorious for being terrible at Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. He seethed about Tears of the Kingdom especially because he went viral for like playing the game really, really badly at one point. But Mario Odyssey, rather less notoriously, he played the game. He got to like the dark side of the moon, and when he got to the last challenge, he utilized a glitch, like a frog glitch, and just kind of like swam across like the obstacle course like in midair to like avoid having to do it, because like he was like, oh, I'm sick and tired of this game. Oh, like my point about this is like Phil seeds about Nintendo games constantly. This is nothing new for him. There was not some like huge radical like downgrade in Nintendo quality when it comes to like Mario Kart World or Bonanza. Like this is just Phil doing what pretendos do and trying to pretend as if like, oh, the old stuff was way better than what we're getting now, which is just a gigantic cove and really needs to be called out for what it is.
apply to the Switch too. So we're going to have this discussion this morning. And again, I really want to have your actual opinions on this. All right. The DK Bonanza stream, if you can believe it. Hot new release day. Let's play it all day. Can't even hit a support goal for it because people are bored. I think that speaks volumes. You know what I mean? If I can hit support goals for Death Stranding 2, GTA 4, driving a truck in Truck Sim, but the brand new Nintendo game, people lost interest in within 2 streams.
That's funny, Phil, because I was streaming the game too and got plenty of viewers. I saw other people streaming the game and they had plenty of viewers. I think what's actually happening is that people are actually playing the game and not paying attention to your stream. Okay? It's so hard to figure out, oh, why are people tuning into older games and games that nobody cares about? Yeah, because nobody's playing them, Phil. I don't understand. Like, the whole Twitch thing argument. Like, it really needs to stop. Like, well, I don't get a lot of views for this game, so that means it must be failing. Like, that's not how this works, Phil. Like, the reason nobody was watching your streams of Donkey Kong Bonanza was because there is real competition in the stream space, and because most of the audience are probably playing it themselves. That's the reality of this situation, okay? Like, the only people who are tuning into you to watch Donkey Kong Bonanza are trolls and people who can't afford to buy the game right away, okay? Like, that's your audience, Phil.
That speaks volumes, okay? Anyway, hasn't always had the best console launches, let's put it that way. Switch 1, when it launched, also did not have a super stellar lineup. In fact, the best game for Switch 1 at launch was Zelda Breath of the Wild, and that game was also on the Wii U. So it didn't matter if you had the Switch or not, you could still play the game.
This is one of those weird, like, double standard things you keep seeing these people come up with. Well, Breath of the Wild wasn't really an exclusive, so that means the Switch didn't have a major launch title at launch, which means the launch for Switch was terrible, and that means the entire first year was bad until Mario Odyssey came out. Like, you see people, like, spew this nonsense out occasionally, and you really do have to just kind of laugh at it, because it's... How exactly did Breath of the Wild being on Wii U, like, impact the Switch's success or the sales of the Switch version at all? Like, was it, like, some big, like, boat anchor around the title? Did it, like, stop people from picking up Switches? Was there, like, some... No! Of course not. This is what we call a cope. This is him reaching to try and damage control and downplay, like, a major Nintendo exclusive. And by the way, this kind of debunks his entire point, isn't it? Like, his claim going into this was that Nintendo launch titles have gone down in quality, that we're getting less of them, that there aren't as many of them, that the Switch 2 is a massive drop in quality from Nintendo. And to prove his point, he immediately starts complaining about the Switch and starts making the same kind of claims about that console, right? It's almost like he decided what he was going to say ahead of time and is just kind of coping and seething to try and, like, meme it into reality, like, because, like, nothing what he's saying here is true at all. It's like Breath of the Wild was great, both on Wii U and on Switch. Fantastic game, fantastic launch lineup on the Switch, and Switch had a killer 2017, and people like Phil just can't bring themselves to admit it.
That's not much of a system seller. You know what I'm saying? I remember that first year of Switch, like, I didn't really feel like the Switch had anything good until Mario Odyssey. Seriously. Like, I remember I thought Breath of the Wild was good, but I was playing it on Wii U because my Switch had broken. Then when I got my Switch back, I got a new one. I played games like ARMS, and that game was a humongous...
Best-selling new fighting game IP of the generation, Phil. Like, ARMS was hugely successful and hugely popular. Min Mins and Smash, we're gonna get a sequel. It is inevitable. Like, this coping and seething about ARMS, a game that was far better received than something like, say, Street Fighter V. Like, this huge success story in ARMS. Phil to this day still sits there and sees, like, well, actually, there was no content to the game. Like, no, Phil. It had plenty of content. It has more content than Street Fighter 6, actually, because of the way the difficulty system works and the mini games and just, like, the achievement system. Yeah, there's a lot more going on in ARMS than there was in Street Fighter 6. Like, the online was better at launch, I can confirm. So, like, yeah, this seething about, like, about ARMS is, like, one of the weirdest things about, like, the FGC like, they keep doing this, like, every single time. And it's the same behavior they exhibited when, like, Melee came out, because, like, it was becoming bigger than, like, Street Fighter, and they were just, like, they coped and seethed about it for years. And I imagine they still do behind closed doors, but, like, Smash is such a big draw now that they can't really say anything openly. The ARMS thing is going to collapse eventually. Like, I'm a big advocate for a sequel. I know lots of people in my community who are big advocates for the sequel. The guy who made it is still at Nintendo, like, I find it laughable how people like Phil are seriously going to sit there and try and gaslight you into thinking ARMS wasn't popular, wasn't well received, wasn't that good. When even now, I'm a huge advocate for the game, and I definitely want to see a sequel. Like Phil, in the next several years, when the sequel does get made, is going to look like an absolute fraud.
This ridiculous, underwhelming joke. The game was just not good. It didn't have enough content. The online play was not, it was just stupid. The game was bad. It was supposed to be a competitive game, and it wasn't. It was a pretty broken game that didn't really have much substance to it. Um, I'm trying to remember, all the different things that I played that first year, but the only game at this point, in 2025, here we are 8 years later, the only game that stands out in my mind was Super Mario Odyssey. And that was like the flagship title. You know what I'm saying? It was the one that I loved absolutely every moment of it. I kept playing it, and every stream of it, I wanted to play more and more. I remember though, notably, when I was playing it, I was loving it, and the audience was not. This audience, I hate to say it, guys, you guys are just not in love with first party Nintendo. You never have been. I have been. It's whenever I play a major first party Nintendo game, so for example, Super Mario Wonder, or, a new Kirby game, a new Smash Brothers, a new Mario Kart, you get hype for like one stream. And then for some reason, the audience just kind of like falls off and isn't that interesting.
I'll tell you why, Phil. This is my perspective as like, Harman Smith, like the biggest Nintendo fan on YouTube, the scourge of the PC gaming community, the man who crushed PlayStation, like the reason people don't watch your Nintendo game streams, the reason people don't watch your Nintendo game streams is because you spend the entire time complaining, bitching, moaning about things that really don't matter. In Kirby, for example, I know you rage quit at the final boss. Mario Wonder, you tried to say it was for children, I think. For Smash, you never really put any effort into it. Like I can just like list numerous times in which like I tuned in to you to see what you thought about games. Arms, I think. Yeah, that was a thing. I remember like watching you play Arms and then like commenting to others online about how bad you were at the game. Like that's just one example. And like when you multiply like you know exponentially, these kind of experiences with like dozens of different people over the years, watching you play like all these different games, like you start to have a reputation as someone who doesn't respect Nintendo, doesn't take them seriously, and isn't really worth talking about at all. Like in this regard, and I do think that's my big major takeaway from this. Oh yeah, that's another good example. Dread, DarkSydePhil did not play Metroid Dread day one. He waited several months for it. And then he was surprised when like nobody like tuned in to watch him play it like months later, because it's just like, well, the game's been out for a while, like you're supposed to be there day one. People asked for it day one and you did not deliver. Right? That's just one example, but like again, he does this thing where like he thinks Nintendo's the problem when it comes to his viewership and his streams and how popular they are. When in reality the common link here is him. Because like I find it interesting how people seem to do this thing where they throw Nintendo like fans under like a singular umbrella when more and more we're becoming increasingly diversified, right? You have the Xenoblade guys, you have the Fire Emblem people, you have like Life Sim, Animal Crossing guys, you have like the platforming fanatics, you have like Zelda fans, you have like Metroid fans, you have like all these different series that don't really have a whole lot of overlap. And that's one of the things that like I find really interesting about this video is that like he's seriously trying to throw all Nintendo fans under the bus when in reality like most of us don't know who he is and don't really care what he says about anything.
I don't know why. I love these games. I find them very entertaining and creative and fun, but in general, my audience has just never been in love with Nintendo. In fact, I think of all the game playthroughs I remember of doing Nintendo, the only one that I remember people loved all the way through was Super Mario World Co-op that I did emulated on PC because it wasn't even available on a console back in the day. and that was like 12 years ago. Like that was the best one that I've ever did. Outside of that, I think I remember everyone would always complain, you know? Rabid following from a certain group of fans and gamers that think that everything Nintendo does is the absolute best on the planet and that their shit doesn't stink. And it's hard to deal with that. It really is. It's bizarre because I've now been a YouTuber for 17 years, almost 18. This fall will be 18 years I've been a YouTuber. Okay. And I've seen highs and lows. I've seen good and bad. And I'm always honest with you guys about that. I've seen Nintendo do some amazing things, and I've seen them do some boneheaded, dumb things as well. I feel like I should be able to talk about it, but it seems like whenever you come out and criticize Nintendo, it's as if like you're committing blasphemy, and now you need to be burned at the stake.
It's because your criticisms don't make any sense, Phil. Like someone like me can like stream Pikmin 4 or whatever, day one, and go through the entire thing and start talking about like, yeah, I don't like the caves, 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 I don't like the caves. Yeah, I guess yeah, I didn't like Pikmin 2 either. So like again, I came away with Pikmin 4 with like this just awful experience. Like I thought it was too easy. I thought it was casualized. The AI was brain dead. There's the caves. Like, there's so much about Pikmin 4 I didn't like. But because I actually have credibility in the community, because I actually am a fan and play everything and don't like complain about stupid stuff, like people respected my opinion and took me seriously. Even though that like I steer like way in the opposite direction where most people will tell you like Pikmin 4 is one of the best games on Switch. I will say it's one of the worst. Like I can't think of any Nintendo first party Nintendo games I dislike as much as Pikmin 4. Like that's my thing. But I actually have credibility. I play all these games. I don't complain about like pointless nonsense. Like again, like here's a good example. Like he's making this video complaining about new Nintendo games when he's not even close to the ends of Bonanza. Okay, that's my big thing. He is legit nowhere close to beating Donkey Kong's game. Okay, like, and he's sitting there like, well, why are Nintendo fans so critical of me? Because like you don't know what you're talking about. Your criticisms of Bonanza make no sense when it comes to like the challenge, the difficulty, the repetitiveness. Like, oh, you just do the same thing over and over again. Yeah, Phil, because you haven't gotten past the first area. Like, it's like, wow. Like this guy really thinks like he's being victimized by the evil Nintendo fans, and it's just so laughably stupid.
But I'm just speaking truths here. Things that I'm seeing, factual observations. What's wrong with that? Whoa, you're just a hater. You don't like Nintendo. No, I do like Nintendo. That's the problem, is that I actually really like Nintendo, and I like to see them succeed. I said that Super Mario Odyssey was the best game of 2017, and everyone told me I was wrong. But I don't care. I liked it that much. So now, 8 years later, it's the next console launch. We're a month and a half in, and I am completely and utterly underwhelmed at this point. All right. I am like, I'm watching this game, I'm playing it, and I'm like, what is going on with Donkey Kong Bonanza? I'm playing Mario Kart, and I'm just frustrated that this is what's happened to this franchise. Like, what happened to the days when you could buy a new Nintendo game and first of all, whenever you bought a new Nintendo game, it was like a magical moment, kind of like when a new big Disney thing would happen back in the day. Like seriously, Nintendo was synonymous with video games, like Disney was synonymous with like a new movie or a new franchise or something that was happening, right? And so a new Mario, a new Donkey Kong, wow, a new Smash Brothers, a new Mario Kart, a new Kirby, a new this, a new that. You get super pumped for it. And then you would play it, and those early hours of wonderment.
Fact check! DarkSydePhil is one of those people that abandoned Nintendo after the Super Nintendo. Never played the N64, never played GameCube. Like, I think he played the Wii a little bit when he became a streamer, but, like, he's always been that guy who's complained about Nintendo constantly, thought their hardware was trash, hated all their games. Like, the fact that he keeps bringing up Mario Odyssey is telling, because if you were really a fan, if you really played a lot of Nintendo games on a lot of consoles, you'd be able to come up with, like, more titles than that. You'd be able to talk about, like, I don't know, Xenoblade Chronicles 3 or No More Heroes 3, Metroid Dread. Like there's so many like titles you can name that have come out like relatively recently on Switch that you should be talking about when it comes to, if you were like supposedly like talking about Nintendo's fall from grace, but he's not. You know, like that's the reality of it, is that he just keeps saying Mario Odyssey, Mario Odyssey, Mario Odyssey over and over again. And it's not because it's a game he particularly liked or enjoyed, because as we've established already, he did not. This is the game he's bringing up specifically because he's trying to downplay Bonanza and to a lesser extent like Mario Kart World. Like that's his reasoning for hyping up Odyssey the way he is just to downplay the new Nintendo title that's just come out.
When you're playing something new and amazing and it truly fools or feels like it's something original, right? And now things are just so different. Even today in 2025, you can't even trust Nintendo to come out with an amazing first party experience because we now have two of them. And in my opinion, they're both pretty underwhelming. All right. With Mario Kart World, the graphics are outstanding and the controls are fine, and it's nostalgia bait with the music and the track design. But you are literally done with the game in 3 hours. There's nothing else to do. And they charged $80 for it as if saying this is the biggest, best Mario Kart ever. And it actually is one of the most underwhelming. The online play is abysmally bad, with people literally just sitting around using overpowered items to win. There's no skill to the driving that people use. It's just item use. And the open world is a complete waste of everybody's time. There's nothing to it.
No, 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 absolutely not true at all. The whole narrative that like, well, the best thing you can do in Mario Kart World is stay at the back and get all the good items, and then wait until you get to wait till the very end of the track and then go to the front. That strategy does not work. That's been proven. It's you're just gonna start competing with other people. You know, like that's not a real thing. Like Mario Kart does take skill. You do have to make the most of like what the item roulette gives you. There is plenty of skill involved in the driving. Like that is a giant. That is saying otherwise is just a gigantic cope. And of course, the world. You know, the world design is impeccable. It's tied together really nicely. You know, Grand Prix, Knockout Tour. Like it's so well made. It leads to lots of really interesting scenarios. You know, I love the mission structure. I love like, you know, just kind of driving around and chilling. Like Mario Kart World's open world is just stunning, and people like Phil are just seething about it. Like, well, why isn't it like Grand Theft Auto? Because it's not Grand Theft Auto, Phil.
They should have been good, but instead, it was just a big disappointment. I played 6 hours of Donkey Kong Bonanza, and the entire time that I've played it, all you do is you scan with sonar and you collect items. That's the whole game. Now, yes, there's platforming in there. There's been one major boss fight. Yeah, there's a little bit of.
So, what's actually happening here is that instead of advancing deeper into the layers where you can encounter the numerous boss fights, the different environments, the new power ups, you know, all the new challenges that await you, like DSP has been staying on the upper layers, just exploring every nook and cranny, punching things, finding random fossils, and just not advancing with the core plot and the story at all. Like, he is complaining about the pacing to a game that he's not even trying to progress in, really. Like, other people have noticed this, and I pointed this out earlier in the stream, but, like, DSP is far behind where he should be at the 6 hours in mark. You know, like, just compare my stream. I got to the prison destruction on day one. And like, yeah, I got up at like 1 in the morning to do it. You know, I streamed it like 3 times that day, balancing it with my normal routine. But like, you know, I got like fairly far into the game like day one. Okay, like I don't know how much time I put into it. Probably around like 8, 9, 10 hours, something like that. So DSP is like 6 hours in. Like I don't know. I don't even know if he's gotten to like the zebra bonanza yet. Like I'll have to check out like to see where he is, but like I like he's dragging, you know, like everything he's complaining about here is entirely his fault. Like he's not like advancing with the plot. He's not like playing through the game properly. Like he's just screwing around endlessly and blaming the game for it, essentially.
variation here and there, but for the most part, the entire game feels the same. Will that change further into the game? I don't know. I played it one day. This is my feelings after 6 hours of gameplay. But I don't want to play a game where you do the same thing for 20 hours. I want to play a game where there's innovation, where there's things that look and feel different. That's exactly what happened with Super Mario Odyssey. Every time you went into a new world, your jaw dropped. Oh, we're in a jungle, and look at this cool, innovative thing. Look at these creatures that are camouflaged. Look at this platforming element that wasn't in the last stage. Oh, now we're in New Donk City. This is amazing. Now you can ride vehicles, you can climb buildings, you can do platforming challenges that are throwbacks to original Donkey Kong, and you can do this and that. Oh, now we're in a stage that's a giant castle, and it's a huge homage like Dark Souls games with a giant gothic dragon and stuff like that. And you keep playing, there's so much more going on, right? Like I said in the video I put out last night, when I was playing Super Mario Odyssey, there wasn't a moment when I felt like, man, I am so bored because this is the same as the last 3 stages, and I just don't feel like anything new is going on, right? With this game, I was about 4 hours in. So I had beaten the first world, and I fought the first boss. I'm like, okay. As soon as I got to that second world, okay, and I started looking around, I'm like, so this is the map. And you start clapping, and like, okay, it's the same items. And you start you're like, wow, it's the same thing. It doesn't even feel like you're on a new level. It just feels like you're doing.
Yeah, Phil. Like I was kind of confused by this too. It's structured differently than Odyssey. Uh, Not every layer is a completely new environment. Like sometimes they tie together, and sometimes they have like similar themes and characters and ideas and concepts and stuff like that. Eventually, you get to like radically different locations with their own unique biomes and characters and like mechanics and stuff like that with completely different feels. You get bonanzas, in those. But like, yeah, saying each layer is a level, I think is like disingenuous. It's not the same thing as like Odyssey's kingdom system at all. Like, so with that being said, yeah, it does take a little bit of getting used to in that regard, especially because you sometimes do go down like holes and end up like in very similar looking areas. But eventually that does stop, and you do eventually move on to the new area. Like, and I think my thing with Bonanza is that like it's quite a bit longer than I would have expected. Like, it feels like there's a lot more going on, and there's a lot more to find and do. Um, so with that being said, yeah, there is a lot of variety in the level design and the powers and the things you do in this game, but like Phil just hasn't gotten to that point yet. Like he's complaining about a game he has barely played.
More of the same level again. That's not good. That's really bad. That's means that they have a concept, and the concept works, except only in limited portions. And that's the problem. If you have a game you can only handle a few hours at a time before you start to get bored, then there's a problem with the game. And that's what happened yesterday to me with Donkey Kong Bonanza. When we first started playing it at the beginning of the day, we were all blown away. But once we got to World 2, all of a sudden that wonderment, right? That awe moment, it kind of went away. Like, oh, it's the same again. It's nothing new here, right? 2 games and a bunch of ports. The ports no one seems to care about, and no one is buying. Everyone.
No, you can check the bestsellers list on Nintendo Switch 2 eShop. You can see that a lot of third-party games are on there, old and new ports alike. So that's the thing that Phil is like kind of downplaying here, is that like over the past month of the Switch 2 being out, new third-party games have come out, and yes, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 and 4 is a bestseller on Nintendo Switch 2. Games like Yakuza 0 are doing well on Switch 2. Like Hitman World of Assassinations, Street Fighter 6, Fantasy Life 2, Cyberpunk 2077. There's endless examples of games that are confirmed to be success stories on the console, and yet Phil is still sitting there like trying to gaslight you into thinking that they're failing. Right? That's not true at all. I've debunked this narrative before. Phil is lying to you.
Everyone's done with Mario Kart World because it's an insanely underwhelming game with almost no content. And now Donkey Kong Bonanza is a game that you're bored of after 3 hours. What the hell happened to Nintendo? Really? What has happened to Nintendo? Is there someone new over there in charge? Is Miyamoto just getting too old? Maybe. Because you got to understand, Nintendo, a lot of the people who are still over there running stuff have been doing it for like 30, 40 years. And maybe at some point you have to realize you have to move on to the next thing, and have the next generation take on the mantle and the reins, because at this point I'm playing.
Miyamoto hasn't been working on games since Star Fox Zero, I think. He hasn't worked on Mario since 3D World. Miyamoto's primary focus lately has been the theme parks and the movies. He's definitely like still an integral part at Nintendo, but he's moved away from game development quite some time ago. Younger people have been running things for a long time. Like, it was younger people who were in charge of Odyssey. Miyamoto did not work on Odyssey at all. He did not work on Mario Kart World, did not work on Bonanza. So, the fact that Phil doesn't know this, the fact that he doesn't know about, say, Splatoon being entirely headed up by, younger guys, it shows just how completely out of touch he is with the company and what's actually going on there and the change in leadership. Because there has been change in direction. Furukawa took over from Kirishima after Iwata's death, right? Furukawa's running things now. He's not taking the same kind of risks Iwata did. He's more business focused. He's not doing the same things Iwata would do. He's not like the savant that Iwata was, but Furukawa's been doing a really, really, really good job. I've been very pleased with his leadership, considering the situation. This idea that Nintendo is falling off, it's just a giant cope. It always has been.
And I'm just like, I don't even get it anymore. It doesn't even feel like a Nintendo game anymore. It feels like they kind of know what a Nintendo game should be, and they're trying to emulate that, but then they flounder, they stumble, they trip on their own shoelaces, and then the game has shortcomings and problems. Like Mario Kart World, when you sell me on there's an open world, holy shit, there's an open world in Mario Kart where you could drive around and do stuff. Cool. So the open world should be, as you drive around, you earn unlockables, like new characters, new vehicles, customizables, and all this, right? No, the open world's completely worthless. It has no value. You get stickers you never use or see. Isn't that just like a design management decision that someone in charge says, hey, no, do this with the open world to make it worthwhile so people feel like their money's worth? How did someone who was in charge of that project not realize that that was a mistake and just have a worthless open world? With Donkey Kong Bonanza, right? Every world should be unique. Every time that you go to the new layer, you should feel like you're entering an entire new environment, new things, new elements, things like that, right? No, instead, you go there, it feels like exactly the same as the last one, exactly the same as the last one. I'm in World 2 now. Technically, I'm in the second half of World 2, the industrial part. The gameplay elements are identical to the beginning of the game from when I started in the tutorial room. Here's what happened versus what would have happened. What happened was Nintendo only had Mario Kart World at launch, so everyone bought it. Now everyone's bored of Mario Kart World, so now you have to buy Bonanza or you have nothing to do with your $450 console that you just bought. So everyone's going to buy Bonanza whether they like it or not, and they're going to play Bonanza, okay? If Nintendo on release day had actually released Mario Kart World and Bonanza at the same time, you would have had a selection of games to buy. And what would have happened is people might have chosen one or the other, depending on if you want a more multiplayer party game or if you want more of a single player platforming experience. And actually, the games would have sold less. So it would have been a better experience for the consumer, but it would have cost Nintendo some money. So Nintendo said, we don't care about that. We're going to create artificial scarcity so everyone will buy both games. And that's exactly what they've done. Now, if that's the case, because now we see how their business practices are, right? Then I would even go the next step further to argue that I think Nintendo now is...
You've got to be kidding me. Wait, what? Huh? They're intentionally making bad games. Huh? What is he talking about?
Purposefully putting out subpar games. I'm serious. I think this is an actual design choice. Nintendo knows that they now have an installed base of customers that will buy everything they sell, that will buy every game they put out, as long as they do it according to this kind of artificial scarcity schedule. They want you to feel like you're special because you got a Switch 2 and you can play every new Switch 2 game. You're part of the in crowd. You're part of the selected group. Right? Much like this is exactly how Apple used to do it. Okay? That's exactly how Apple was. It's hard to get an Apple device on launch day. You're hip if you get it. It's expensive. You got to wait in line. You got to reserve. Everything's proprietary. Oh, but look, me, I got my iPod, I got my AirBuds, I got my freaking iPhone, my new freaking laptop, my MacBook, right? Look at me, I'm so cool. So you feel like you're a part of a movement rather than just a consumer of an electronic. And I feel like that's exactly what Nintendo is now doing. Instead of being the lead of a cultural thing of video games, they just want to be the company that's hip and cool that you need to have their products. And they're going to have this kind of strategy to make that happen. This whole thing this year has been a savvy move. There is a good reason, a very good reason why we don't have a release date for Metroid Prime 4 yet. From all reports, the game is going to release this year, but we don't have any information about the game. It's being done on purpose. Trust me. And I even wouldn't be surprised if there's another game, first-party game, that's going to drop before Metroid Prime 4. And the thing is, everyone wants Metroid Prime 4, but there's not going to be any other games for Switch 2. So whether or not you want it, you're still going to buy whatever that new game is because you have a Switch 2 and it's just sitting there collecting dust and you want to use it and you don't want it to be worthless. You don't want to feel like you had an investment in something that's not useful to you. So whatever game it is that Nintendo drops, it may not even be a ultra popular franchise. You're going to buy it because you want to be part of the hit movement. Oh, I have the Switch 2. Look, I got the new Switch 2 game and I want to be using my console, right? I don't know what it's going to be. Now, I know for a lot of people, this is hard to hear. They don't want to hear it. They want to believe that Nintendo is like the best gaming company ever, and they're above criticism and above reproach, and they have the best of intentions for everyone. They're just a company, just like every other company. They're out to make money. They're out to please people who are in positions of power. I don't know if they're publicly traded and they have shareholders. I don't know that, but that's all they are. They're just a company like any other company. They're not some, oh, we're better than them. You know what I'm saying? Kind of a deal. They're not any better than another company. They do things differently. That's for sure. But I don't think like we should be ignoring the fact that this year we're seeing a lot of things out of Nintendo that should be criticized. Okay. Right now, I was expecting Bonanza to be this incredible blow you away style game like Odyssey was. And instead, it's kind of like you're going to a restaurant and you're sitting down to eat a gourmet meal and you've heard so much about this restaurant, everyone raves about it, and you know you're going to pay more to eat there. And you sit down and you get your food, you start to eat like, it's not bad, but it's not great. What is everyone raving about this restaurant? But now you're part of the people who've been to that restaurant. See? Oh, well, I went to that really hard to get into restaurant and I paid a lot of money to eat there. So you act like it's a big deal even if it's not. That's kind of how I feel right now about DK Bonanza. So
there you have it. DarkSydePhil's hot take on Nintendo Switch 2, Mario Kart World, and Donkey Kong Bonanza. Just completely worthless. He made no valid points at all. Like, I especially love that bit at the end where he starts saying that, like, oh, this company just wants money. And I'm just like, yeah, don't we all? Don't you go on stream like asking people for support all the time? It's like, oh, Nintendo's greedy. Like, oh, give me money. It's just like, huh? Like the double standards are just unbelievable with DarkSydePhil. Just unbelievable. Just downright ridiculous. I do think people need to speak out more about this. Like, I was just checking my Twitter account, and like someone was complaining about how insane this is. That he's seriously trying to tell people that Nintendo is making the games bad on purpose because this somehow leads to their like again, he tries to make like staggering our release schedule out to be a bad thing. He tries to like downplay all like the older games that are available on Switch 2, all the third-party ports, like everything new that's come out in between like Bonanza and Mario Kart World. He tries downplaying Mario Kart and Bonanza, and like he seriously tries to say, he does the absolute most stereotypical Pretendo thing he could possibly do. Only Metroid is worth looking forward to. It's like come on, Phil. Come on, Phil. Like that really needs to stop. You're embarrassing yourself. The Metroid thing, that's so 2000s. Like, oh man. Like, oh, Nintendo didn't celebrate the 25th anniversary. Yeah, shut up, Phil. But like, yeah, this is I don't know, man. I'm really curious how he's gonna handle like the upcoming Nintendo Direct because we are gonna get a Pokemon presentation. That's confirmed. So like Pokemon Legends EA is coming in October. That's gonna be a big deal. Like Prime 4 is coming out this year. We got the Mario Party updates, the Kirby updates. Dragon Drive. Very very curious like how he's gonna downplay all of that. It's gonna be remarkable. But I'm seeing a lot of people calling him out on this though. Like fans aren't happy, like because Bonanza is this like wildly successful, popular Nintendo game. I would say like the biggest Nintendo game I've seen in years. Like Tears of the Kingdom was like just both Tears of the Kingdom and Super Mario Bros. Wonder were really hated and downplayed for like because like they were seen as like lazy and derivative or whatever. But Bonanza doesn't have that problem. Like we're on a new console now. People can't downplay and ignore it. They can't say like they're looking more forward to other things on the console. Like Bonanza was like a big launch title game, and I think this is going to be like an all time favorite for a lot of people. Like I don't think I'm one of them. For me personally, I can't get over the fact that I think I do. I love Donkey Kong 64, but like, Bonanza is definitely something very special and definitely something that deserves props. And it's like, it would be okay if Phil was like honest with like his audience and just be like, yeah, I just don't like the game. I would rather just play like WWE Legends and just take your money. Like, that's what Phil really thinks. But instead, he has to like spin it in this way where he tries to make Nintendo look like the bad guy. That's all this is. That's all this really amounts to. Like the real like situation is that Phil just doesn't want to come out and admit that he would much rather be playing a mobile game and paying microtransactions while drinking and enjoying his time alone in his condo.